A candy bar melted in one engineer's pocket and changed every kitchen. Today, 33 historical discoveries that were actually accidents, mistakes, and weird, lucky breaks. From penicillin growing in London to X-rays glowing in a dark German lab. You will see how wrong turns, spills, and forgotten objects rewrote modern history. Stay for number 33, because Pac-Man may have started with one missing pizza slice. The discovery of penicillin was a lab mistake. Millions survived bacterial infections because Alexander Fleming was surprisingly bad at housekeeping. In September 1928, he returned to St. Mary's Hospital in London after vacation. One neglected petri dish had grown mold beside a ring of dead bacteria. That mold was Penicillium, and Fleming immediately noticed the surrounding germs had collapsed. He had not designed a miracle drug experiment, he had basically forgotten cleanup. The bigger breakthrough came later, when Howard Florey and Ernst Chain purified penicillin. During World War II, factories in Britain and America rushed production for soldiers. Before antibiotics, a cut, sore throat, or childbirth infection could become fatal. One messy lab plate ended up changing medicine more than countless tidy notebooks. 2. America was found while looking for Asia. An accidental voyage across the Atlantic permanently scrambled maps, empires, and human history. In 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed for Spain, expecting a western route to Asia. He reached Caribbean islands instead, then insisted he had found the Indies. That mistake lasted stubbornly, right down to the name he used for indigenous peoples. Columbus never set foot on mainland North America and never understood the scale. Leif Erikson's Norse expedition had reached Newfoundland around 1000, centuries before Columbus. And indigenous nations had lived across the Americas for thousands of years already. Still, Columbus's voyage triggered conquest, colonization, disease, trade, and a global power shift. So one navigational error became one of history's loudest and longest misunderstandings. 3. Gunpowder was invented by people trying to make immortality potions. A failed search for eternal life accidentally handed humanity one of history's deadliest tools. During China's Tang Dynasty, alchemists mixed strange substances while chasing longevity around the 9th century. Instead of immortality, they created a volatile powder that loved exploding dramatically. Early texts warned that the mixture burned hands, faces, and even entire houses. At first, gunpowder appeared in fireworks, signal flares, and theatrical military displays. Then Chinese armies adapted it into bombs, fire arrows, and primitive guns. The formula eventually traveled west through conquest, trade, and technological copying. So the people chasing endless life accidentally accelerated warfare on several continents. That is a brutal plot twist for something born in a potion laboratory. 4. The microwave oven came from a melted candy bar. A lunchtime surprise changed kitchens everywhere because Percy Spencer noticed one weirdly soft pocket. In 1945, Spencer was testing magnetrons for Raytheon near radar equipment in Massachusetts. He realized the candy bar in his pocket had mysteriously melted. So he tried popcorn kernels next, and they started popping across the lab. Then he heated an egg, which burst and reportedly sprayed someone nearby. Spencer had stumbled onto cooking with microwaves, not by planning dinner. Raytheon patented the idea, then released huge commercial ovens a few years later. Early microwave ovens were expensive metal beasts, more submarine than countertop convenience. But that melted candy bar eventually became leftovers, frozen dinners, and office break room culture. 5. X-rays were found by accident in a darkened lab. Modern medicine learned to see through flesh because Wilhelm Jungen noticed a glow. In November 1895, he was experimenting with cathode rays in Würzburg, Germany. The tube was covered, yet a nearby fluorescent screen suddenly started shining. That should not have happened, which is exactly why Röntgen kept investigating. He placed objects between the tube and screen, then watched shadows appear. Soon he made the famous image of his wife Anna Bertha's hand. Her wedding ring hovered on the plate like something halfway between science and haunting. Röntgen called them X-rays because he did not know what they were. Within months, doctors everywhere were peering inside broken bodies without making a cut. 6. The first pacemaker worked because of a wrong resistor. Countless hearts kept beating because engineer Wilson Greatbatch made one tiny electronic mistake. In 1956, he was building a device to record heart rhythms in buffalo. He grabbed the wrong resistor from a parts box and installed it. Instead of recording signals, the circuit produced a steady electrical pulse. That pulse looked suspiciously like the rhythm needed to stimulate a failing heart. Greatbatch realized he had built something far more important than planned. He spent years miniaturizing and improving the implantable pacemaker with surgeon William Chardak. In 1960, the first successful implant went into a human patient. So a little component error became a machine that literally interrupts death. 7. Vulcanized rubber was created by dropping the mixture on a hot stove. Modern tires exist because Charles Goodyear had terrible luck until one lucky spill. Before vulcanization, rubber melted in summer and cracked badly in winter. Goodyear spent years in the 1830s and 1940s obsessively chasing a fix. He mixed rubber with sulfur, failed repeatedly, and sank into debt. Then, in 1839, some of the mixture hit a hot stove. Instead of turning useless goo, it charred and became stronger, springier, and stable. That heat-driven change became vulcanization, named after Vulcan, Rome's fire god. Goodyear never became rich from it, which feels almost offensively unfair. But every car tire owes something to one accidental encounter with heat. 8. Post-it notes came from a glue that failed. Office walls and textbooks got covered in yellow squares because Spencer Silver missed. In 1968, Silver was working at 3 meters, trying to create a powerful adhesive. Instead, he produced a weak glue that stuck lightly and peeled off cleanly. That sounded useless, which is usually corporate code for ignore this forever. For years, Silver kept promoting it inside 3 meters without much excitement. Then Art Fry, another employee, wanted bookmarks that would not fall out. He remembered Silver's odd adhesive and tested little paper notes in church hymnals. The result was practical, oddly satisfying, and weirdly hard to stop using. So one failed superglue became the world's favorite way to postpone real work. 9. Teflon was discovered in a gas cylinder that seemed empty. Nonstick pans and spacecraft parts trace back to a chemical cylinder that looked useless. In 1938, chemist Roy Plunkett was working for DuPont in New Jersey. He was experimenting with refrigerant gases when one pressurized can stopped flowing. The cylinder still weighed something, which made the mystery immediately suspicious. When they cut it open, the gas had transformed into a waxy white solid. That substance was polytetrafluoroethylene, later branded as Teflon. It was slippery, chemically resistant, and bizarrely stable under heat and pressure. Those properties made it valuable for wartime industry long before frying pans. So an apparently empty tank turned out to be hiding one very busy polymer. 10. Safety glass was born from a broken flask. Safer windshields began with a laboratory accident that should have made a bigger mess. In 1903, French chemist Édouard Benedictus dropped a glass flask in his lab. It cracked, but the pieces strangely stayed together instead of scattering everywhere. Earlier, the flask had held cellulose nitrate, leaving behind a thin plastic film. That invisible coating acted like a primitive glue holding the shattered glass. Benedictus reportedly did not pursue it immediately, which feels wildly human. Then car accidents made the need for safer windshields painfully obvious. His laminated glass design later reduced injuries from flying shards during crashes. So one broken flask quietly became a major upgrade for modern survival. 11. The Slinky started as a failed naval spring. A toy that hypnotized generations began as military engineering for battleship equipment. He knocked one off a shelf and watched it walk down awkwardly. Instead of solving a naval problem, the spring performed like a metal worm. Richard and Betty James realized children might love this weird little motion. They named it Slinky, packed it in yellow boxes, and hit stores. At first, sales were slow until a department store demonstration changed everything. Kids swarmed the toy as it descended a ramp with impossible confidence. So a failed stabilizing spring became a stair-walking icon of American childhood. 12. Corn flakes came from forgotten dough. Breakfast changed because two brothers left wheat sitting around too long in Michigan. In the 1890s, Dr. John Harvey Kellogg ran a sanitarium in Battle Creek. He and his brother Will Keith Kellogg were experimenting with bland health foods. One batch of cooked wheat went stale before they could finish processing it. When they rolled it anyway, it formed thin flakes instead of sheets. They toasted the flakes and served them to patients, who surprisingly liked them. Later, Will added sugar and built a cereal empire, upsetting John badly. Their business split turned breakfast into boardroom warfare with cardboard boxes. So one neglected batch of grain became the sound of millions chewing mornings. 13. Potato chips were invented out of spite. One irritated chef's comeback snack ended up conquering vending machines and football couches. The classic story begins in 1853 at Moon's Lake House, Saratoga Springs, New York. Chef George Crumb reportedly faced a customer complaining his fried potatoes were too thick. Annoyed, Crumb sliced them paper-thin, fried them hard, and salted them heavily. Instead of hating them, the customer loved them and wanted more. Whether every detail is perfectly true remains debated, but Saratoga chips spread quickly. Soon, restaurants copied them, factories bagged them, and people stopped pretending moderation mattered. A side dish became an industry powered by salt, crunch, and greasy fingertips. All because somewhere, someone got fussy about potatoes at dinner. 14. Popsicles were created by a child who left a drink outside. A frozen childhood staple began because an 11-year-old forgot his drink overnight. In 1905, Frank Epperson of San Francisco mixed soda powder with water. He left the cup outside with the stirring stick still inside. Temperatures dropped overnight, and the drink froze solid around the stick. That turned breakfast into a discovery and probably confused him tremendously. Years later, Epperson revived the idea and patented the treat in 1923. He first called it the Epsicle, which honestly sounds less likely to survive. His children reportedly called them popsicles, and that name stuck instead. So one forgotten cup became summer rescue for sticky hands everywhere. 15. Champagne was originally a wine-making problem. Luxury celebration bubbles started as an embarrassing flaw that terrified French winemakers. In the Champagne region during the 17th century, cold weather interrupted fermentation. Wine bottled too early restarted fermenting in spring, building pressure inside glass. That meant exploding bottles, wasted product, and cellars that sounded like gunfire. For years, winemakers considered those bubbles a dangerous defect, not sophistication. Stronger bottles and corks eventually made the sparkle easier to control. Dom Pérignon helped improve blending and quality, though many legends exaggerate his role. The English also played a major part by preferring and supporting sparkling wine. So the sound of celebration began as a headache for nervous cellar workers. 16. The discovery of LSD began with a chemical accident. A tiny laboratory mistake opened one of history's strangest doors inside a scientist's mind. In 1938, Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann synthesized LSD while working at Sandoz in Basel. Nothing dramatic happened then, so the compound sat largely ignored for years. In 1943, Hofmann revisited it and accidentally absorbed a small amount. He felt restless, dizzy, and strangely dreamlike, which was not standard lab routine. Days later, he deliberately tested it and biked home through surreal hallucinations. That famous bicycle ride became psychedelic history's least normal commute. LSD later shaped psychiatry research, counterculture, music, and plenty of moral panic. All because one chemist's fingertips met a molecule with very loud effects. 17. Viagra was meant to treat heart problems. A blockbuster blue pill happened because patients in drug trials reported the wrong improvement. In the 1990s, Pfizer was testing sildenafil for angina and high blood pressure. The cardiovascular results were underwhelming, which usually sends medicines quietly toward oblivion. But male participants were oddly reluctant to return their unused tablets. Researchers noticed a pattern, and suddenly the side effect became the main event. Pfizer pivoted fast, and Viagra launched in 1998 with enormous attention. It transformed treatment for erectile dysfunction and quickly entered comedy, culture, and late-night jokes. So a disappointing heart drug became one of the world's most recognizable prescriptions. That is a career change no marketing department could have storyboarded better. 18. Superglue was first rejected as too sticky. One of the strongest household fixes was dismissed because it worked almost offensively well. In 1942, Harry Coover was researching materials for clear gun sights during wartime. He encountered cyanoacrylate, but it stuck to everything and seemed impractical. That made it useless for precision optics, so the project moved on. Years later, in 1951, Coover rediscovered it while working on aircraft canopies. Again, it bonded instantly, even without heat, pressure, or elaborate preparation. This time, he understood the inconvenience was actually the product's superpower. Eastman Kodak commercialized it, and households everywhere started gluing accidental finger pairs. So a rejected wartime nuisance became the king of emergency drawer repairs. 19. Saccharine was discovered because a chemist did not wash his hands. Artificial sweetness entered modern diets because Konstantin Fallberg skipped one basic hygiene step. In 1879, he was working at Johns Hopkins with chemist Ira Remsen. After handling coal tar derivatives, Fallberg noticed his dinner tasted strangely sweet. Then he realized the sweetness was on his fingers, not the food. That observation led to saccharin, one of the first artificial sweeteners. Remsen helped supervise the research, but Fallberg later patented it himself. The two men fell out badly, which added bitterness to the sweet discovery. Saccharin later became especially popular during sugar shortages and diabetic diets. So a forgotten hand-washing moment reshaped desserts, coffee, and diet label language. 20. Stainless steel came from trying to improve gun barrels. Rust-resistant steel changed kitchens and surgery because Harry Brearley chased a weapons problem. In 1913, Brearley worked in Sheffield, England, studying erosion inside rifle barrels. He tested steel alloys with extra chromium, hoping they would survive intense heat. Some discarded samples refused to rust in the rainy air outside. That was unusual enough to stop everything and look closer. The chromium formed a protective oxide layer, sealing the metal against corrosion. Brearley had not created indestructible steel, but he had made something immensely useful. Cutlery manufacturers soon realized knives stayed shiny instead of spotting and staining. So a military metallurgy project helped produce cleaner kitchens and cleaner operating rooms. 21. The implantable defibrillator grew out of a failed experiment. A device that yanks hearts back from chaos emerged from frustration inside a lab. In the 1960s, Michel Moravsky lost his mentor Harry Heller to arrhythmia. That loss pushed him to pursue an implantable defibrillator, despite deep skepticism. Many experts thought shocking a heart from inside the body sounded absurd. Moravsky and Morton Mower kept testing prototypes, enduring ridicule and technical dead ends. The early devices were bulky, invasive, and nowhere near elegant by modern standards. In 1980, surgeons implanted the first successful version in a patient. It could detect lethal rhythms and deliver a life-saving jolt automatically. So what many dismissed as unrealistic became a guardian hidden inside the chest. 22. Anesthesia's laughing gas roots came from party entertainment. Pain relief in surgery owes something to stage shows where people inhaled gas. In the late 18th century, nitrous oxide became popular at public demonstrations. Guests inhaled it, giggled, staggered around, and acted like history's first prank videos. In 1844, dentist Horace Wells attended one such event in Hartford, Connecticut. He noticed a participant injured his leg without seeming to feel pain. That observation hit Wells harder than the gas probably hit the audience. The next day, Wells tested nitrous oxide during a tooth extraction on himself. His early demonstrations stumbled, but the idea helped push anesthesia toward medicine. So serious pain control partly emerged from what looked like carnival chemistry. 23. The cosmic microwave background was found while cleaning bird droppings off an antenna. Proof of the early universe appeared because two radio astronomers could not remove weird static. In 1964, Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson worked at Bell Labs in New Jersey. Their giant Homedale horn antenna kept receiving a faint background hiss from everywhere. They checked electronics, weather, urban interference, and every ordinary explanation they could imagine. They even cleaned out pigeons and what they politely described as white dielectric material. The noise still remained, equally strong in every direction of the sky. Meanwhile, Princeton physicists were predicting leftover radiation from the Big Bang. When the groups connected, the annoying hiss became cosmology's biggest supporting clue. So, one stubborn signal turned bird droppings in confusion into a Nobel Prize. 24. Radioactivity was discovered by accident in a drawer. Nuclear physics began because Henri Becquerel left photographic plates in the dark. In 1896, he was studying uranium salts after Röntgen's X-ray discovery. Becquerel expected sunlight would activate the salts and create penetrating rays. Cloudy weather interrupted the plan, so he stored everything in a drawer. Later, the photographic plates were mysteriously fogged despite getting no sunlight. That meant uranium itself was emitting energy spontaneously, which was astonishing. Marie and Pierre Curie then pushed the work further, naming radioactivity and isolating radium. What started as a postponed experiment grew into medicine, weapons, and modern physics. So, an overcast Paris week ended up changing humanity's relationship with matter. 25. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found by a shepherd looking for a lost goat. Ancient biblical and Jewish texts resurfaced because a teenager tossed a stone into a cave. Around 1947, Bedouin shepherd Muhammad Ed-Dib was near Qumran, but one of his goats had wandered off among the rocky cliffs. He threw a stone into a cave and heard pottery shatter. Inside were jars holding old scrolls wrapped in linen, hidden for centuries. The texts included biblical manuscripts and sectarian writings from the Second Temple period. Scholars realized these were among the oldest surviving Hebrew Bible manuscripts ever found. The discovery transformed biblical studies, Jewish history, and the archaeology of ancient Judea. So one missing goat led to one of the 20th century's greatest manuscript finds. 26. Mauve, the first synthetic dye, came from a failed malaria cure. Fashion changed forever because an 18-year-old chemistry student chased the wrong medicine. In 1856, William Henry Perkin was trying to synthesize quinine in London. Quinine mattered because malaria was deadly and natural supplies were limited. Perkin's experiment failed, leaving behind a dark, sticky residue in the flask. Then he noticed it produced a vivid purple dye on silk. That color, later called mauve, was bright, stable, and wildly fashionable. European elites loved it, and Queen Victoria helped make mauve a sensation. Perkin abandoned medicine research and founded a dye industry almost overnight. so a failed anti-malarial project painted the Victorian world purple. 27. The discovery of America by Vikings was proven by ruins no one expected to find. The Viking arrival in North America stopped being legend when excavators found turf walls. In 1960, Norwegian explorer Helge Ingstad and archaeologist Anne Steen Ingstad investigated Newfoundland. At Lonsel's Meadows, they uncovered house remains matching known Norse building styles. There were iron nails, a spindle whorl, and evidence of boat repair. Those details mattered because indigenous societies there did not produce iron that way. The site dated to around the year 1000, fitting Icelandic saga traditions. That made Leif Erikson's Western Voyage far more than just old storytelling. UNESCO later recognized the settlement as the earliest known European site in North America. So some humble ruins ended a centuries-long argument with sod, nails, and charcoal. 28. Dynamite was created while trying to control an unstable explosive. Mining, construction, and warfare changed because Alfred Nobel needed nitroglycerin to behave itself. In the 1860s, nitroglycerin was powerful but dangerously unstable, even during ordinary transport. One explosion in 1864 killed several people, including Nobel's younger brother Emil. That personal disaster pushed Alfred Nobel to find a safer, usable form. He discovered that mixing nitroglycerin with absorbent kieselguhr made it more manageable. The resulting sticks could be handled more safely and detonated more predictably. Nobel patented dynamite in 1867 and built an enormous industrial empire. Later, uneasy about his legacy, he funded the Nobel Prizes through his will. So a tragedy, a stabilizer, and a guilty conscience all shaped modern memory. 29. Play-Doh began as wallpaper cleaner. A children's classic began because coal soot kept making American wallpaper look miserable. In the 1930s, Koodle Products made a soft compound for cleaning wallpaper. Coal heating left dark residue on walls, and the putty lifted it off. Then cleaner fuels and washable wallpaper made the product suddenly feel obsolete. Years later, teacher Kay Zufall saw children happily modeling shapes with the compound. Her husband Joe and company owner Noah McVicker pivoted toward the toy market. They removed the detergent, added color, and gave it a friendlier name. Play-Doh reached classrooms in the 1950s and never looked back. So, one feeding household chore accidentally became the smell of elementary school creativity. 30. The first artificial sweeteners were tasted by mistake. Several sugar substitutes reached the world because chemists kept touching their mouths after experiments. That sounds reckless today, and honestly, it was not a brilliant testing method. Saccarine's discoverer, Konstantin Fallberg, noticed sweetness on his fingers in 1879. Cyclamate surfaced similarly in 1937 when Michael Sfeda tasted sweetness on a cigarette. Aspartame joined the pattern in 1965 after James Schlatter licked his finger. None of these men were trying to improve dessert at that exact moment. Each discovery came from lab work aimed at entirely different chemical questions. Later, the sweeteners sparked huge markets, health debates, and endless diet soda loyalty. So modern guilt-free sweetness partly rests on scientists making questionable lunchtime choices. 31. Velcro was inspired by burrs stuck to a dog. A fastening system used in shoes and space gear began during a walk. In 1941, Swiss engineer Georges de Mestral returned from the countryside annoyed. Burrs had clung stubbornly to his clothes and to his dog's fur. Most people would remove them and move on with life. Mestral instead examined one under a microscope and saw tiny hooks. Those hooks grabbed loops in fabric and hair with surprising efficiency. He spent years replicating the system, eventually using nylon and heat shaping. The result became Velcro, from the French words for velvet and hook. So one clingy plant turned irritation into one of engineering's neatest copies. 32. The ice cream cone became popular because a vendor ran out of dishes. One of the most convenient desserts took off because serving plates briefly failed. At the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis, ice cream sold fast. Some stories say vendor Arnold Fernascio ran short on dishes during the rush. Nearby, Syrian-born waffle seller Ernest Hamwi supposedly rolled warm pastries into cones. That quick improvisation gave customers a portable edible container instead of waiting. Historians debate the exact inventor because several vendors later claimed the idea. But the fair undeniably helped popularize cones on a massive public stage. By the 20th century, cones were standard and spoons started losing power. So, dessert portability may owe a lot to one overcrowded summer fair. 33. The coffee filter was invented with blotting paper from a school notebook. Better coffee mornings began because one German housewife was tired of bitter sludge. In 1908, Melita Bentz of Dresden wanted cleaner brewed coffee at home. Metal pots like ground slipped through, and over-extraction made the drink harsh. So she punched holes in a brass cup and lined it. The paper came from a blotting sheet taken from her son's notebook. Hot water passed through, ground stayed behind, and breakfast got immediately better. Melita patented the filter and launched a company from her household experiment. That company still exists, proving caffeine and convenience make a powerful partnership. So, one mother's notebook raid permanently improved groggy mornings around the world.